massacre over the weekend. 40-year-old Wade Michael Page was a U.S. Army veteran, but he was forced to surrender his title of sergeant and leave the service after appearing drunk on the job years ago.
Yeah, he was among the 7 people who were killed on Sunday morning in a case that is being classified as domestic, quote, domestic terrorism. So what exactly classifies this case as terror? We have judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano here.
Morning, guys.
This is very interesting. So let's just sort of use a hypothetical here in New York City. Let's say something happens, a shooting like this. Ray Kelly, the police commissioner, comes out and says, this is an act of terrorism.
The legal definition of terrorism is 2 or more acts of violence intended to change the policy of the government by scaring the population or by scaring the government.
Is that what happened in this case?
That does not appear to be what happened in this case. By this case, you're talking about the Wisconsin case.
Right.
Page he's dead, he appears to have been a disgruntled nutjob who hated Muslims, didn't know the difference between Sikhs and Muslims, and thought by killing the Sikhs he was somehow going to eliminate the Muslim population. It's an absurd, tortured way of thinking. But it is not an act of domestic terrorism. On the other hand, the Fort Hood shooter, who killed military in the place where they were, while damning and condemning the behavior of the government, the employer of the people that he killed, the government refuses to call that an act of domestic terrorism.
While hailing Allah. Too,
yes.
his words are, and that's been verified.
If that is not a case of terrorism, then nothing is a case of terrorism.
So you're saying the government got it wrong in the Nadal Hassan case. That was terrorism. They called it workplace violence. So what's at play here?
I think what's playing here is politics. I think that there's a political ramification to calling something terrorism. It scares people. We look at it more closely. But if you call something workplace violence, as horrific as it is, it doesn't scare us as much as it does with the word terrorism. You see, the law allows the government to prosecute plotters. Let's say Steve pulls the trigger, but Juliet and Brian also plotted with him. Steve's convicted, the 2 of you can be convicted in an act of terrorism. You'd get the same punishment. If somebody died, this is obviously a hypothetical, you would all get the death penalty, because the law allows the government to prosecute the plotters in a case of terrorism the same as the trigger.
And the bottom line is there was a group tracking this guy and other skinheads and Nazis, because we got to stay ahead of something like this. I mean, this group's doctrine essentially is to wipe out everybody who's not white.
Well, if these people plotted with him, actually planned this assault and helped him, then they can be prosecuted under the terrorism laws, even though
they'll be questioned, won't they?
Oh, I would think
the people in these photos?
I would think the government would question them, because the government would want to know who else is involved in this, and when is this going to happen, or when do you think this is going to happen next?
All right, Judge Andrew Napolitano, always a pleasure. Thank you.
I hope I made this a little clearer.
No, you did. You really did.
There's a test coming later, Brian.
Yes, there will be. Written, not multiple choice.